I never thought my trip to the mall would turn into a nightmare. As I walked through the aisles with my service dog, a woman began to follow me. She demanded to pet my dog, but I refused. What happened next was a showdown unlike any other. Here's how it all went down. Subscribe to You're the Jerk on YouTube in the next 10 seconds for good luck. I was at the mall with my service dog, a beautiful golden retriever named Charlie. Charlie was my constant companion, and he had been trained to help me with my PTSD. As I walked through the mall, I noticed a woman staring at me. She was with her husband, and they both looked like they were in their 40s. I didn't think much of it at first, but as I continued to walk, the woman started to follow me. When I stopped to look at something in a store window, she approached me. "Excuse me," she said. "Can I pet your dog?" I looked at her, surprised. "I'm sorry, no," I said. "Charlie is working right now." The woman's face turned red. "What do you mean he's working?" she asked. "He's just a dog." I tried to explain to her that Charlie was a service dog, and that he was there to help me with my PTSD, but she wasn't having it. "I don't believe you," she said. "I think you're just trying to bring your dog into the mall with you." I could feel my anxiety starting to rise. "I'm not lying," I said. "Charlie is a trained service dog." The woman didn't believe me, and she started to raise her voice. People around us were starting to stare, and I could feel my panic attack coming on. I tried to walk away, but the woman stood in front of me, blocking my path. "You're not going anywhere until I get to pet your dog," she said. Her husband looked embarrassed and tried to pull her away, but she wouldn't budge. "Please," I said, my voice shaking. "Charlie is working. He can't be petted." The woman sneered at me. "I don't care," she said. "I have a right to pet any dog I want." I could feel my anger rising. "You don't have a right to pet my dog," I said. "He's not here for your amusement." The woman laughed. "Amusement?" she said. "That's all you service dog people are good for. You just want attention." I felt tears welling up in my eyes. I couldn't believe this woman's audacity. "I don't want attention," I said. "I just want to be able to go to the mall without being harassed." The woman rolled her eyes. "You're just faking it to get special treatment," she said. "I bet you're not even disabled." I couldn't take it anymore. "That's it," I said. "I'm calling security." The woman smirked. "Go ahead," she said. "They're not going to do anything. You're just a crazy person with a dog." I pulled out my phone and called mall security. As I waited for them to arrive, I could feel my heart racing. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that I couldn't let this woman get away with treating me and my dog like this. I could feel my anxiety skyrocketing as Karen continued to berate me. "You're just a faker," she sneered. "You don't really need that dog." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. "I do need him," I said. "He helps me with my PTSD." Karen laughed. "PTSD?" she said. "That's not even a real thing. You're just looking for attention." I could feel my blood boiling. "You have no idea what you're talking about," I said. "PTSD is a very real condition, and it's not something to be taken lightly." Karen just shrugged. "Whatever," she said. "I'm still going to pet your dog." I tried to move away, but Karen stepped in front of me, blocking my path. "You're not going anywhere," she said. "I want to pet your dog, and I'm not leaving until I do." I could feel my heart racing as Karen continued to yell at me. I didn't know what to do, but I knew that I had to get away from her. "Please," I said. "Just leave me alone." Karen just laughed. "No," she said. "I'm not leaving until I get to pet your dog." I could feel my anxiety building to a fever pitch. I needed to get away from Karen, but I didn't know how, and then suddenly something inside me snapped. "No," I said, my voice rising. "You are not going to pet my dog. You have no right to touch him. He's not your dog. He's mine, and he's here to help me." Karen just smirked. "You're crazy," she said. "You're just making a scene." I could feel my anger rising. "No," I said. "You're the crazy one. You're the one who's harassing me and my dog. You have no right to do that." I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as Karen continued to argue with me. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew that I couldn't let her win. I had to stand up for myself and for Charlie no matter what. I could feel my heart racing as Karen continued to yell at me. Passers-by started to intervene, asking Karen to leave me alone. "Ma'am, please step away from her," one of them said. "No," Karen said. "I have a right to pet her dog. She's just being difficult." Another person stepped in. "She has a service dog," they said. "She doesn't have to let you pet him." Karen looked around, realizing that she was causing a scene. "Fine," she said, finally stepping back. "But you're all crazy. That's not a real service dog." I felt a sense of relief wash over me as Karen and her husband walked away. Mall security arrived a few minutes later, and I explained what had happened. They took down my information and said they would file a report. As I walked away with Charlie, I felt a sense of victory. I had stood up for myself and for my dog, and I had won. But I knew that there would be other Karens out there, and I would have to be ready to stand up to them too. I can't believe some people can be so entitled. Emily's story really made me think about the importance of service dogs for people with PTSD. I never realized how much they can help with anxiety and panic attacks. It's amazing how well-trained dogs like Charlie can provide comfort and support to their owners. I'm glad Emily was able to stand up for herself and her dog, and I hope that Karen learned a lesson from this experience. Am I the jerk for telling my sister she'll always be Indian no matter how much she tries to whitewash herself? I'm a 17-year-old male, and my sister is a 15-year-old female. Our parents immigrated from India before we were born, so we've grown up in the US our whole lives. Despite this, I'd say we've stayed fairly attached to our culture. We visit India every other summer, and we speak our language. However, recently I've noticed that my sister has been trying to distance herself from being Indian because, in her words, it's uncool, and Indians are negatively stereotyped. She's convinced that people don't think she's Indian because we have lightish skin, even though she obviously looks Indian, and so do I. When asked about her ethnicity, she always says something like, "I'm Indian, but most people think I'm Latina, mixed or Greek-Italian." Nobody thinks that. She has started referring to herself by a white-sounding diminutive of her name, talks about only wanting to date white guys because Indian guys are unattractive, and is obsessively trying to lighten her skin even further. I don't think this is a good mindset. It would be one thing if she was never that attached to the Indian part of her identity, and so doesn't identify as such, but it's another thing that she has, and is deliberately pushing it away, because she feels it's uncool. That sort of mindset that being Indian is bad only leads to self-hatred, because no matter how much she changes herself externally, she'll know deep down that she's Indian, and hate herself for it. And not only is it wrong, but it's also obvious what she's trying to do, and I know many people find it cringeworthy, so she's hurting herself both mentally and socially. Today, I took her aside and told her that no matter how much she tries to whitewash herself, she'll still be Indian, and everybody but her sees her that way. She called me the jerk for it, but I'm just trying to look out for her. I hope she comes around eventually. Relevant comments. OP wrote over 300. I tried to keep as few as possible. A commenter asked if the sister's behavior could be coming partially from extended family. The OP replied, "Possibly. A lot of the family tends to praise her and I for our fair skin, so maybe she feels she needs to keep her skin as pale as possible to be attractive." Another commenter asked if the parents know, and the OP replied, "I've been talking to them about it, and they are concerned about that, yes, and taking action to stop my sister from using it, which I'm glad for." When asked about therapy, the OP replied, "My parents don't believe in therapists, but books are a possibility." The OP disagreed with a commenter who said the sister was just accepting her present rather than her past. The OP said, "Everything she does is reactionary to her past, being Indian, whitening her skin, talking about how non-Indian she is, and so on, rather than accepting it as a part of her and moving on." Another commenter said, "Hating herself for looking Indian and constantly reasserting how non-Indian you look isn't living her life as an American, it's hating the unchangeable fact she's Indian." The OP said, "It's not an opinion that she's using skin lightening creams which harm her skin and can cause cancer. It's not an opinion she hates herself for being Indian and is doing anything to get away from it." The OP also clarified that they live in NorCal, with lots of Indians in the area, and their high school is more Indian than it is white. So, it's not that the sister is changing herself to fit in. The OP said, "As for my motives, it's more that I see this as hurting herself mentally long-term than anything." Another commenter suggested showing the sister third-party, unbiased sources that aren't coming from the OP. The OP replied, "Yeah, that's a good idea. She might not listen to me, but third-party, unbiased sources that aren't coming from me, she might be more willing to listen to. Thank you." The OP also said, "I don't expect her to fully embrace the culture and be 100% Indian. I'm not either. I just think that hating her culture like she does right now is only going to hurt her in the end." The OP said, "I just think it's silly to deny the fact that growing up in a household with a non-American culture, having a foot in both worlds, impacts you. Somebody can deny their background, but it doesn't change the fact that it has helped shape the person they are today. Plus, in the case of Mindy Kaling, almost every Indian American teenager in the country has managed to traverse being the child of two cultures and learn to appreciate and be the best of both. So why can't a 30-something-year-old woman with an Ivy League degree do the same?" The OP also said, "This is the most white liberal statement I've heard all day. Your race, culture, and upbringing inherently has an impact on your psyche, so no, you can't simply decide you're not Indian, because being Indian as opposed to another race has already impacted you. The same goes for every other race." OP is voted as the jerk, but mostly because of his approach. He left an update 10 days later. First off, thank you to everybody who offered valuable advice such as 1. To talk to her to get to the root of why she's rejecting and trying to outrun her heritage. 2. To get her to connect with her culture in fun, relatively simple ways she enjoys to open the door to more in the future. 3. To get her to watch media that reflects people going through a similar struggle. 4. Get my parents involved in stopping her from harming herself. One memorable commenter even sent me links to Korean-Indian mixed weddings that showed an appreciation for Indian culture since she's a K-pop fan. I've tried to enact them. I've gotten my parents involved, and they've made it impossible for her to get skin lightening creams, which is a good first step. I've tried building a bridge between her and her culture through small things, sweets, traditional clothes, songs, with minimal success, but I'll keep trying since it hasn't been long at all. Similar results for introducing her to media too. The big thing, of course, was listening to her on why she felt the need to distance herself so much. Simply put, she felt India was portrayed by Western media and seen by people in the West as something barbaric. In the eyes of many, millions of years of history and culture are reduced down to a view of the nation and all its people as backwards, oppressive, sexist, discriminatory. In her words, it goes further than that, because of the reductive views people have on India and its people, in which both those things are synonymous with uncivilized and sexist. Appreciating her culture was always seen as her being brainwashed for loving a culture that just wanted to oppress her. I've come across these same reductive, broad-stroke stereotypes in my own previous post. For example, they may already have a list of potential husbands to marry her off to. You should be proud and get her a new tube of Fair and Lovely. By the way, she's getting old now. Time to find her a husband from a good family, I think. Maybe she hates her Indian roots because girls are supposed to be beautiful, obedient, good at school, clean at home, serve parents and bro, and marry the guy her parents choose for her. All this while being proud of her culture of, if I gave you a sandwich and said I put feces in it, would you still eat that sandwich? The comparison being in this case, Indian culture equals a sandwich with feces in it. These are just a few examples from my post. So I can see how she could run into these views as well that would paint a reductive, stereotypical view of her heritage as well. She's taken these sorts of disgusting views she's come across, that India, and hence her heritage, is something negative or dirty, and that appreciating it means she's embracing something that's inherently against her existence, and has totally internalized them. This is to such an extent that she sees her Indian heritage as something she needs to escape or remove, but she cannot, no matter how many times she talks about looking Italian or how many tubs of skin lightening cream she uses. Growing up in an Indian household in the US, straddling those two very different worlds and cultures, gave her a unique upbringing shared by nobody, not kids who grew up in India, nor those with roots in the US, not even other immigrant families. That unique upbringing shaped who she is, and her heritage as an Indian American, and the impact it had on her psyche, is imprinted within her. She cannot change that. She's acutely aware of that, and it scares her, because she's been taught to see it as something disgusting. With time, I want to teach her what I learned myself, that it isn't a choice she has to make, to embrace one culture or another, to be an American, or an Indian. You can embrace the parts of both that you like, and leave the other parts behind. It's not black or white. Being Indian is a part of her that she cannot ever outrun, just like being an American is. But that doesn't have to mean being 100% one or the other. And I hope people who portray India and Indians with such disgusting stereotypes realize how perpetuating them instead of recognizing its beauty plays a huge part in causing people like my sister to hate their culture. So rather than helping or supporting her liberation, are hypocritically part of the reason why young people of Indian descent develop self-hatred. I hope every kid grappling with their identity because of these stereotypes can grow to appreciate the beauty of their culture. I hope that with time, empathy, and support, I can lead my sister to seeing that too. It's heartbreaking to see someone reject a part of their identity because of negative stereotypes and societal pressure. It's great to see that the OP is trying to help their sister connect with her culture in a positive way. I hope that more people can learn to appreciate the beauty of all cultures and reject harmful stereotypes. Am I the jerk for refusing to go to my own birthday dinner? I thought my arranged marriage was a dream come true until I found out my husband already had a girlfriend. Things only got worse when I had a medical emergency and he and his family showed me their true colors. But just when I thought I was free from their grasp, they pulled me back in with a birthday dinner invitation. Here's how it all went down, using a throwaway because my sister-in-law knows my main. So, a little backstory. I, 25F, and my husband Vernon, 36, have been married for 5 years. It was arranged by my grandfather and his uncle, we are not American, so it's common here. Vernon wasn't too thrilled about the marriage, and he made it very clear because he was already in a relationship with Felicity, 30F. Long story short, Vernon, his family, and Felicity did the most to make my life hell, and I was stuck on the idea that one day, he might change. About 3 years ago, I found out I was pregnant, and I was excited, but he wasn't. Given we only had sex a handful of times before that, he got it into his head that it wasn't his. The baby had complications, and I had to get a medical abortion. Not once did he or his family come to the hospital, and I guess that opened my eyes and I just stopped caring. I stopped trying, I just stopped caring. Early last year, he suddenly started caring, coming home early, calling me, bringing me flowers. It was quite uncomfortable for me. Then he tells me that he's had a change of heart and wants to try to better our marriage because he's developed feelings for me. It's all fishy to me, honestly. I wouldn't trust this man as far as I can throw him. He's been doing these little things and I just can't shake that there's a joke coming at my expense. Now onto the story. It was my birthday last weekend and Vernon told me his family was hosting me a birthday dinner. I told him I wasn't comfortable with that, and the last time I was at his parents', they literally told me my baby's complications were my fault and kicked me out because Felicity was uncomfortable. Not to mention that they haven't apologized, just started acting friendly. I kept telling him no, and he kept insisting. He let it go, and I assumed that was that. I made plans and went out with my mom and cousins, and he starts calling me asking me where I am. I tell him, and he tells me that he's waiting for me. What? Long story short, his family is mad that I skipped because they apparently wanted to apologize so that we could move forward, and Vernon keeps saying he understands why I did it but has been apologizing for everything and nothing. Last night, Felicity called to cuss me out because they've left her high and dry and Vernon wants nothing to do with her. So maybe they did want to apologize. I thought I was in the right, but now even my cousins are telling me I was wrong for skipping. Now I am doubting myself. Am I the jerk? Relevant comments. The commenter wanted a bit more background on the OP. Here's what they said. Yes, I do work as a teacher. I don't make much, but since everything in the house is taken care of by Vernon, I've managed to save up a sustainable amount. I can leave and there wouldn't be much consequences on myself. Nothing physical anyway. It's my family that would suffer, because me leaving would cause them to be shunned by the community. This means they won't be allowed in shops, they could starve and people would watch them because their morals would be put to question. I am looking into ways to take them with me to the next city. On the topic of birth control, OP said, birth control isn't exactly a thing here because it defeats the whole populate the earth thing, so I only get one option which I don't completely trust, but we haven't had sex in a year, but I have it just in case. A commenter asked, why did his uncle arrange the marriage? I am sorry, I don't know how to add an edit to the post, but yes, his uncle is the head of the family, and doesn't like Felicity because she's not from our culture. Vernon didn't go against his uncle because it would lead to his shunning. Marrying me had benefits such as the house we live in and a piece of land in the farming areas, so I guess that was it. His uncle mentioned to the family that the only way the marriage would end was if I was to initiate it. I didn't know about any of this, and everything has started making more sense now. One last comment from OP. Honestly, I don't understand the elders' reasoning behind our marriage. All I know is that I was of age to marry, and had to marry before I was out of season. At the beginning, I truly believed we could work it out because that's how most of my relatives' marriages started out, and they are happy now. After I realized it was a lost cause, I couldn't leave because a divorce is unacceptable unless there is physical abuse. When Felicity called me to cuss me out, she spilled the beans about the house being a benefit of the marriage, and the uncle not liking her because she's not from our culture. I plan on asking Vernon or the others about more information because I am in the dark and it's killing me. I want to make a well-informed decision on my next step going forward. At this point, I am only staying because I don't want my family to suffer the shame of me leaving. The OP left a mini update in the comments. Wow, I wasn't expecting this to get as much attention as it has. I am overwhelmed and am sorry if I won't manage to reply to everyone. Thank you for your kind words and advice. Some more info on my family because I saw repeating questions in the comments. My family didn't know about most of what was going on. I chose to not tell them, but they still found out and are still willing to handle the effects of me leaving, but I can't let them do that. Everyone is happy, and this would disrupt their lives greatly. I can't bring myself to do that, especially to my little nieces. A few hours after I made the post, I decided to have a talk with Vernon after he came home from work. It went somewhat okay. I followed some advice in the comments about starting over on my terms. I asked him questions I needed answers to, and he gave me answers. I wasn't completely satisfied, but it's a start. I told him I would give our marriage a chance, but he had to know that he was completely done with Felicity and would be completely on board with this. I told him to stop with the love bombing because it was making me uncomfortable. I told him I would absolutely not be having kids in the near future. I told him I was in no way ready to be his wife, and we would continue with our separate rooms. Surprisingly, he was on board with all of this and said that he wasn't a boy anymore, and that he was getting older, and he needed to sort himself out and make things right. I asked him if he only had a change of heart, because he wanted me to take care of him in his old age, and he said no. He said he realized that Felicity isn't what he's always wanted, and started seeing her manipulate toxic ways. His words. He said he was willing to put the house in only my name, it's 40% mine, entirely as a way of showing that he is all in, and would mess up if I give us a second chance. He said he was willing to give me as much space as I need. He said he'll have a word with his family about me needing time and space and taking baby steps. Honestly, I don't know where this will go at this point. I don't know the direction in which we are headed, but I'm willing to try so I can have a free conscience. I've started making a backup plan to leave, but that's in the worst case scenario. I'll update if anything significant happens. The OP left an update 3 weeks later. Hey everyone. So a few things happened that I thought you all needed to know. First off, I'd like to thank everyone for your care and support. I never thought I'd cry after reading words, but you have no idea how much courage your kind words have given me. I told Vernon to go through with transferring the house into my name and he did. I guess he knew he would be getting more money. So now I own the house. Nobody was telling me anything about the 180 change, so I decided to go to Felicity. I know it was stupid. She was the only one who was willing to give me any information since she's spiteful, and I think I got what I needed. It's not much, but it's enough to cement my decision. Turns out Felicity had her womb removed when she was younger, so she can't give Vernon children. The whole family found out and turned against her. An uncle has been speaking of retiring, and Vernon has been at war with uncle's sons to either take over the business or become one of the decision makers, and a child would guarantee that he would give a large sum of the company shares that would be in his name and the child's, and since Felicity couldn't give him a child, I was the solution. Felicity told me as much as she knew, and so I went to one of Vernon's cousins. I confronted him about what Felicity said, and after a heated back and forth he finally confirmed everything. I don't know why, but that hurt. Even though I knew it was too good to be true, I still held on to hope that maybe I was wrong. After the conversation, I decided to play along until I could get out. He completely cut off Felicity, and it's scary just how much he's acting like she never existed. I put in a transfer to a city 12 hours away from here. My head teacher knows my situation and swore not to tell them. I brought up moving to my family, and the majority of them said I'd be selfish if I did that, and their whole lives are here and all that. But honestly, I feel I should put myself first. I told them it was just a thought and that I would never do that. My mom and brother have been my biggest support system, and I am taking them with me. My cousin is moving with my little nieces to his wife's city, so that's that. I found a house where my mom, brother, 2 cousins and I will stay. I listed this house for sale on a private auction page. This will cause a big blowout, but I won't be here, so LOL. I leave this place in about 40 days, and the most tiring thing is to get my affairs in order without raising suspicion. I refused to be intimate with Vernon, and told him I wasn't ready. He told me we'll work on my time, but I see him getting more and more frustrated each day. Even though I am scared for myself and my family on what they will do when they find out I've decided to leave and am not changing my mind. I am still young, and I honestly don't want to end up like my mother, in a loveless marriage with a cheating alcoholic. I took the words of internet strangers for me to realize that and am so grateful. I'm sorry if this is all over the place. It's really scary when you realize that someone you're supposed to trust and love has been manipulating and using you for their own gain. I'm glad that OP was able to see through the lies and stand up for herself, but it's important to remember that leaving an abusive or toxic situation can be incredibly dangerous. I hope she has a strong support system and stays safe during this transition. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out another one on your screen now, subscribe now, or you're definitely the jerk.